The year is 1943. In the past 4 years, the Third Reich has expanded substantially, with the invasion of Poland, the capitulation of France, the Low Countries, as well as the defeat of Denmark and Norway by 1941. This allowed Germany to remain a stranglehold over a large portion of Europe. On the 22nd of June 1941, the German High Command initiated Operation Barbarossa, in which the Germans willingly opened up a second front and invaded the Soviet Union. Although 1941 and 1942 allowed the Third Reich to occupy large swathes of land with the successful use of blitzkrieg, by 1943 the war had begun to turn, with their defeat at Stalingrad and beginning of withdrawals westward alongside the British and Americans' occupation of North Africa. The war was beginning to shift its tide towards the Allied powers, and Germany needed to change from an offensive stance to that of a defensive one. The entrance of the Americans into the war in late 1941 meant the industrial capacity of the Allies increased drastically, and so it would not be long before superior Allied air power would be bombing the German heartland. In 1939, the development of a new jet-powered aircraft began, designated Project P1065, which would be the predecessor of the Me-262. The aim was to use two BMW P3302 engines, which were axial flow turbojet engines, instead of the previously developed centrifugal flow turbojets, with the aim to reduce resistance and allow more efficient airflow for higher speeds. In April 8, 1941, P1065 is given the designation Me-262 by the RLM, or the Reichsluftfahrtministerium. By March 25, 1942, the Me-262 had seen its first test flight with the BMW jet engines. Unfortunately, the flight ends prematurely due to the failure of both of these engines. By July, the Me-262 completed a 25-minute test flight, trouble-free, using Jumo 004 engines instead of its proposed BMW ones. In June 1943, Messerschmitt's plan for the series production is approved, and the design first sees service in June 1944. The problem with the Me-262 was the fact it required two jet engines, which were both expensive and difficult to produce with the limited resources available at the time. In March 1943, Focke began a series of experimental design studies for a single-seat jet-powered fighter. In July 1944, the RLM issues a new jet competition named 1TL Jaeger, or Single Jet Fighter. The requirements were a top speed of 1,000 km per hour, 621 miles per hour, an endurance of an hour at 7,000 meters, or 23,000 feet, must have armor protection for the pilot, and standard fighter equipment such as radio and gun sights. The engine was to be a HES-011 turbojet, and the armament to consist of two Mark 108 30mm cannons, and the design must be ready by the 10th of September 1944. Major aircraft companies took part in this contest, including Blum & Voss, who couldn't submit any proposal as the design was not ready by the required time frame, Heinkel with their P1073, the Messerschmitt with their P1101, and Focke NR280 in the beginning stage, of which the Focke NR280 Flitzer is the main aircraft we will focus on today. All other aircraft submitted will also be rejected, as well as the Flitzer. Another 2 rounds will take place within the competition, and it ended in February 1945. According to a source, Junkers received developmental contract for the EF-128 design. However, the war will end on May 7th, 1945, before any can be produced. The Flitzer, although not accepted into production, still had a full-scale mock-up created, which features a new experimental design, which will also be adopted by other nations after the end of World War II. The Flitzer, the mid-fuselage mounted wings, had a moderate sweepback of 32 degrees, featured twin booms and a high-mounted tailplane. The engine was a single Heinkel S011A turbojet, although the original design paired it with a Walter HWK 509A2 rocket engine. It had dual intakes in its wing roots, and the engine was at the rear. The undercarriage was wheeled and fully retractable in a tricycle configuration, similar to that of the Me-262. The Flitzer had a length of 10.5 meters, or 34.6 feet, a wingspan of 8 meters, or 26.2 feet, and a height of 2.3 meters, or 7.7 feet. Its estimated flight performance was a max speed of 954 km per hour, or 593 miles per hour, a service ceiling of 13,000 meters, or 42,500 feet, and a rate of climb of 1,100 meters a minute, or 3,600 feet a minute. Its planned armament included either two Mark 103 30mm cannons, or a combination of two Mk 108 30mm cannon in the lower nose and two Mg 151 20mm cannons in the wings. During the developmental stages of this aircraft, a similar design featuring twin booms was being developed across the Channel. The de Havilland Vampire, which flew for the first time in 1943 after 2 years of development. This aircraft was only fully operational after the war in 1946, and overall 3,268 units were built. The similarities in these designs are not thought to be the product of espionage, but instead similar approaches by the designers to resolve common problems both teams may have encountered. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please do like and subscribe, and comment any other rare prototype vehicles you want me to cover next. But thank you,